I have dedicated my professional career to the study and control of arthropods.
Hey, this video is a response to a YouTube user, ThatRileyGuy. Um, his video called what was it? Homosexuality is not natural. I think that's what it's called. And again, I want to state this. I've said it before. I don't normally, and I don't like to really respond to the YouTube children. Um, First of all, because they're most of the time, well, it's not worth my time. Um, and the other thing is that there are plenty of young people out there in their peer groups that are doing a fantastic job of countering them. And just to throw out, I want to point out one. What is it? Who is the user? Amazing Libertarian. I'll put a link up. This kid has fantastic videos. Absolutely awesome. He does a great job. And he actually counters ThatRileyGuy. Apparently, they even know each other. But that aside, I felt the need to respond to this video. So this is to you, Riley, because of the fact that I'm an educator, okay, professionally and in heart, in spirit, okay. I feel the need to educate when I see misinformation, when I see wrong. I feel the need to correct it, and I'm afraid, kid, if you keep up your viewpoint, your little narrow mind right there, you've got some maybe white sheets, some goose steps in your future. I see it coming. All right, so maybe there's a chance, to open your mind up a little bit, nip it in the bud before you find yourself in that category. Maybe you want to be in that category. Who am I to say? But so I want to talk about you do you to be honest with you, you might, I don't know, you were reading, I could tell you were reading a script, so you might want to like look at your script, analyze it, take it to one of your teachers, and they can red mark circle all of the logic flaws and contradictions you make, because you're frankly, you don't make a single valid point in that entire video. You just simply um, it's completely contradictory, self-contradictory, internally inconsistent. Okay. Um, but I want to just address the one point to talk about specifically is you talk about an unnatural in the animal kingdom. Now I'm a invertebrate zoologist. I did my master's research. My master's degree is in crustacean reproductive biology. For that, I was expected to collect, read, study, and write about sexual biology of the animal kingdom, and in fact, even some plants. And so I became something of an expert on sexual biology. So if you have any questions on something being natural or unnatural, I'm a fair source for that kind of information. Um, and I have to state, you talk about, okay, I'm going to start one big flaw. You talk about 1,500 being a small number of observations given the millions of things that have been seen and all that. What you're leaving out, what you ignore is that, or have wrong, I guess, not even ignore, is that that's 1,500 species we know of. Somebody made a comment on it already. That's 1,500 species of animal that we have observed that have homosexual individuals, either completely or partially. Homosexuality is observed in those species. Now you have to understand, we actually know very, very little. Compared to the vast number of species that are described, actual behavioral observations, we actually only have on a real small fraction of that. So this 1,500 observations of that behavior indicates that homosexuality exists in almost every single species that we study. Everything, if we take the time to look at a species, to observe it over time, we find homosexual individuals. So those ones that we don't have, that's all. Anyway, the point is that it's very, very natural. And I'm going to talk a bit here. I don't want to get too complicated. But there's a concept in science, behavioral specialists, behavioral scientists, and morphological scientists as well. But I'm talking behaviors here. we analyze our data, our observations. We don't just write it down and go, "This is a fact. This is something I saw." Okay. This data, this information has to kind of go through a filter. Um, there's a whole complex series of filters in reality and science. But I'm looking at this, the main filter that behavioralists use, that behavioral scientists use when we're looking at natural versus unnatural, aberrant versus non-aberrant behaviors, is this ESS, this concept of evolutionary stable strategies. Okay, this actually stems from, it's kind of neat. It actually stems in part from research by John Nash in economics. What is it? Beautiful Mind. That movie. Anyway, this stems from it. But this idea of evolutionary stable strategies is that a behavior has to be, that a genetic behavior has got to be stable. It's got to be persistent. It has to have a reason behind its existence, otherwise it goes extinct. So a behavior that caused an individual to not reproduce at all would be eliminated from the gene pool. Those carrying the gene, their offspring, would be eliminated until the gene itself is extinct. So when we find a persistent gene in a population, we have to ask what is the ESS? What is this evolutionary stable strategy? What is the benefit of this? Benefit is kind of a vague. The term is vague. I'm not meaning it. It doesn't mean it's good. It just means that it persists. So what is that? We have to analyze that and find out what it could be. And what we find in homosexuality in humans, it's very complex, by the way. It's probably not a single gene. It's probably dozens of genes, and that tied to environmental factors, especially prenatal environmental factors. But what we find with the genetic component is that we find that the female siblings of a homosexual male tend to be more fecund than other females in the population, meaning they have more offspring and a better survivorship of their offspring. They carry to term a higher frequency of offspring than do females that don't have a homosexual male in their family as a sibling. So what this means is that while if you've got, say a family of 4, 1 boy, 3 girls, that boy may not have offspring, or may have, a lot of homosexuals do reproduce, but fewer offspring than the general other males in the population. But that difference is made up for by his siblings, who have more offspring than the general population. So the gene persists. They carry the gene, they spread it to their offspring, and it persists. There's other behavior factors. A lot of studies have been done on homosexual rearing of offspring. That's anyway, wherein having a non-reproductive male in the family actually ultimately benefits the survivorship of the other offspring, the grandchildren or the nieces, nephews, and such, because they have an extra caregiver. Anyway, there's lots of things like that. The prenatal aspect has to do with the fact that the more offspring an individual has, a female has, males, the higher the probability is of that the subsequent male will be born gay, because of the prenatal environment. The female's immune system is fighting the androgens, fighting the male hormones. So there's an environmental that changes the biochemistry of the offspring. I'm running out of time here, and I want to make this point because I think it's critically important. My last point that I want to make to you: you're only 14, all right? So I say you've got a good 20 years before your brain is really, really fully mature, and you're putting out a lot of bigoted hate videos. Okay, well, I'll say a lot. Okay, you're putting out bigoted hate videos a lot. Maybe that's a superlative. You're putting out hate videos. You're pretty young to be putting that out in the world. People save these, people archive these. Even if you delete them, they're still out there somewhere. You put it out into the world. I'm going to say this is going to come back and bite you in the ass someday, because the world is changing. I fully believe that in a few years, people that are bigoted against homosexuals are going to be in the same category as people who are bigoted against, are bigoted against black people or minority groups, religious groups. They're going to be looked at as this thing, and someday you're going to have an opinion that's very different from the one you have now. And your videos are going to be out there. somebody's going to show them to you, and you're going to be pretty ashamed of yourself. So take that to heart. All right, think about it.